welcome to Volvo Ocean Race headquarters here for the live arrivals, the live finish of leg one. And we've been getting some pictures in already as the boats approach. Now, we've got Conrad Coleman with me as always. And Conrad, the finish of this leg, I mean, at one point it was looking straightforward, but actually right now there's some interesting stuff happening on the water.
Well, there is, and it's not what we expect from the Volvo Ocean Race. The Volvo Ocean Race is known for life at the extreme. And here it is extremely frustrating for Charlie Enright and his crew on Vestas 11th Hour Racing. They are struggling just to make it across the finish line.
Well, actually right now, I mean, we're dialing into the computer system on board the boat. We can tell you that the direction that the boat is traveling is away from the finish line. They were sailing nicely up the river. We knew that the breeze was going to be a little tricky for them. It's a relief now, I've got to say, to go on board. These are live shots coming to you now. It's a relief to see that they're actually starting to make some progress, because a few moments ago, we actually saw some crew members up the bow with an anchor out, just trying to halt their slip away from the finish.
And it looked like the anchor actually went into the water and that they had given up hope. But now, what a relief to see this boat moving through the water, although the eye may be deceived a little bit, because remember, we're sailing up a river at the moment, the tide is coming out, and so even as the boat moves up along the course, the water is draining out of that big basin, and they may be even standing still right now.
Well, here is Vestas 11th Hour Racing making their way towards the finish line up through the river in Lisbon. But let's take a look at where we are in the world and where we are on leg one. Let's walk us through the fleet. Now, there's a very interesting battle going on right now between Turn the Tide on Plastic and Team Brunel. Both boats have been unable to leave the other one behind. It was Turn the Tide on Plastic. At the moment, it is Team Brunel just starting to punch clear. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that. But they are some hours away from the finish line. Ahead of them, we've got Sun Hunkai Scallywag, and pretty much they're the only boat that's really on their own. So we're zipping forward again to Axon Nobel and Dongfeng Race Team. This has been another very tight drag race, and Dongfeng Race Team, arguably a little bit more experienced, certainly with the Volvo Ocean Race 65, having done the last edition. They've just started to edge a little bit over the last 24 hours. Then in second place, we've got Mafre, really superbly sailing up into second, a very strong second over the last 2 days. But out in the lead, and the finish line is agonizingly close. It is Charlie Enright and Mark Tao for the American Danish team, Vestas 11th Hour Racing. But you can see their trail there on that screen. They are just struggling to find the breeze. And it looked like they did it so nicely coming into the river. And just at that last point, you know, they sailed into a massive hole.
Well, just a couple of miles away from making it across the finish line in first place. Now, remember, this team is not a stranger to winning a leg in the Volvo Ocean Race. They won the last one in the last edition of the race. This time, it's just the first edition of the Volvo Ocean Race, 17, 18, and yet this could be 2 back-to-back wins, incredibly.
So these are images coming now from a rib that's following the boats up the river, and well, that just gives you a pretty good idea of where the breeze is here. We've had a team on the shore at the finish line waiting to welcome the boats. We've had helicopters out. We've been monitoring the situation here from Volvo Ocean Race headquarters. We knew that there were some patchy conditions. There was some question mark as to what the breeze was going to do, but here you can see Vestas 11th Hour Racing tacking up the river, making some good use of it, and they're going to be desperate to try to link together these areas of breeze.
Exactly. I think that they're going to be looking very, very closely at the micro level. If they'll be looking for little ruffles of wind on the surface of the water, those are the dark patches that we may be able to pick out ourselves with our bird's eye view from the helicopter. So, you know, from here in the studio and you watching at home, you can see that there's a dark patch just a little bit forward and left of the boat. That'll be a good set of breeze, although they seem to be in a light patch, but moving along nicely. Now that they've tacked over, they're heading back straight at the line. So they were really suffering there on port tack, heading down to the south, but actually this option is really painful for them now. That's allowed them to get away from the coastline that seemed to be sucking up all of the wind, and now they seem to be in fresh air.
So Vestas 11th Hour Racing now tacking over, heading along on starboard, but you can see on the top of your picture there, that is where the finish line is. We'll have to wait to see when the computer catches up with their track whether it looks like they're going to lay that finish. At the moment, the breeze is lightly tacking angles are quite large. It's probably going to be a few more tacks for the American-Danish team to get up there. And also, there's a little bit of current in there as well. We have seen them punished by the current coming out of the river, taking them away from the finish line. You can just see that on their trail, just bananaing down. And that's their tacking angle there. The computer's caught up, their bows way down. They're building speed. Hopefully, when everything sort of gets into place, they'll start getting lifted a little bit close to that line. Because, yes, you know, they've built up quite a buffer ahead of Maffrey in second place with a superb offshore performance. But this will have scared them. They'll be very happy to finish.
Absolutely. Yesterday, remember, I made a pretty, well, ballsy projection. I don't know if some of you were watching our live show yesterday. I said that when they had 30 miles of lead, I predicted that it was going to stretch out, and indeed that they were going to be able to maintain that lead all the way to the finish. And admittedly, I'll own this one, I said that they were going to win by 4 hours. Now, instead of stretching that lead, actually they've seen it eaten away by the red Spanish boat from behind. It's now down to 14.48 miles. I had predicted it might be as close as 50. So that's yacht racing for you.
But I think to give you your dues there, one thing that has happened, yes, Maffrey have been sailing fast, but also we saw, before we came live, a couple of hours before we came live, if you're following on the tracker, that will give you the picture, it turned into a beat. So actually in terms of time, you know, it's all sort of squeezed up, but in terms of distance sailed, Vestas has still been a long way ahead. And it's going to be an interesting conversation for everybody, the teams, us as well, over the next week, is just how formidable Vestas 11th Hour Racing now seem to the race favourites, Maffrey.
Well, they've certainly given the Spanish boat an absolute run for their money, and they have held them off through all kinds of condition. A few days ago, you may have joined us for our live helicopter images when they were blasting the other way, westwards through the Gibraltar Straits. Incredible images, jibing their way through a really narrow strait at up to 30 knots of wind speed, nearly 30 knots of boat speed. And here they are just trickling along in what looks to be 5 or 6 knots of wind, upwind with the J0. A complete 180 on the conditions and on the skill set that's required to get the boat through both of those different scenarios, and yet they've kept race favourites Maffrey behind them through all of it. So really, I think that these guys might be one of the boats to watch.
I think certainly one of the boats to watch, and right now what we are seeing is a very relieved team indeed. Now there's some miles to go before they cross the finish line. The breeze is looking fairly consistent right now, so let's just take a moment to look back at leg one and have a look at some of the highlights. There is an unbelievable sense of excitement out in the water right now. We've got a bit of space on the start line, just enough for these boats to get off, but the water is ram-packed with spectators.
It's a pretty short course around the Bay of Alicante. This is it, 7 polished professional teams, 8 months of relentless racing, 12 cities, pushing every inch to win, over 11 legs in brutal conditions.
Holy moly, that was intense.
Looking forward to getting offshore and getting set up on the offshore part of this race properly.
It's only 44,995 miles. Still liking it. It's all good. Best job in the world.
We went pretty well overnight, but we know that it's going to be really tricky coming up, going through Gibraltar, and then the following 24 hours after that.
Six hours ago, we were going downwind in 30 knots, and now it's blowing 3 knots.
Just trying to find the best way through this light transition.
so we'll be going back downwind and finally on our way, well, pointing almost at Lisbon.
Well, there you go, some of the best moments of leg one, but the finish is still to come. Vestas 11th Hour Racing, if you can see that on your screen right now, 9.5 knots they're experiencing. That's their boat speed, and that's a big relief for this team. Earlier on, in fact, just before we came on air, we saw them becalmed, we saw the anchor come out. Now it's masthead code 0, full main, the crew's up on the side. It's nice pressure, and it's really nice after so many days. What have we done? 1,650 miles, something like that. So nice to cross the finish line and not have to bleed for that final mile.
Well, I think that the soul of a sailor just absolutely sinks as soon as the anchor comes out. And they must have been grinning wide when they finally got that fresh puff of air that came through and allowed them to make forward progress again. Now, remember, Lisbon is called the City of Seven Hills, and they are approaching the sort of quite mountainous headlands just in by the mouth of the Taj River here. And that's what that tricky period of transition was, that the wind actually is coming from the north at the moment, if you take away all of those mountains and all of the local effects, and yet they're sailing upwind, basically due east. And so they've got the wind right on the nose, and that is all about the wind blowing down from the north, around the mountains that are north of Lisbon, through the bay, and then spinning down the channel created by this river. And so Mapfre has, as you pointed out, have been charging out from behind, but, well, I haven't been so good with my predictions so far, but I'd be willing to bet that they're going to drift around in circles for a while as well.
And that's certainly a very happy crew. This is a big difference to what we saw about 30 minutes, an hour ago, something like that, when they were parked up. Very relieved to get on their way. And I want to just pick your brain on one thing here, Conrad, because before we came on air, you were talking about some of the work that Vestas has done for Vestas 11th Hour. You know, Vestas, the wind energy company, they've been working with them with their supercomputers, and have been a lot of useful things for the sailing team.
Exactly. I had a chat with Simon Fisher, their navigator on board, who most notably won the race in the last edition as navigator for Abu Dhabi, so clearly he's no slouch when it comes to navigation. This time, however, he's got a huge brains trust around him. He works with a lot of renowned navigators to help them prepare before they head off to sea, and as part of that, they use their sponsor. Now, incredibly, Vestas is the world's largest manufacturer of wind turbines, and in order to site the wind farms in the most productive manner, they have to model the way the air flows around hills, hummocks, headlands, and they have created a cell of supercomputers and very sophisticated modeling software that allows them to do that. Now, in order to help this team get a little edge when it comes down to this one design racing, they have been modeling the local effect of wind all around these areas, particularly Lisbon, which is renowned for being a complicated place to start and finish a boat race. Also Auckland, for example, Cape of Good Hope, the Cape Horn. And so, just to be clear, this is work that's done in preparation. They're not talking to Vestas when they're out at sea, but they will have created a very sophisticated road book that will help Simon Fisher to make the right call at the right time.
And I think it's important to mention that actually the moment where they sailed into that wind shadow just coming into the river, that's actually the first time that we've seen this team put a single step wrong in terms of whole leg navigation, but also little micro moments of navigation as well. They do seem pretty well prepared. So my question for you is, considering that this team have got 5 Volvo Ocean Race wins within their squad, they've got 23 Volvo Ocean Races within their squad, they are a team that seems very professional, very humble. Where's the chink in their armour to give Mapfre the confidence to come back?
Well, I don't think that Mapfre needs to find a chink in their armor. That they're here for a battle. They've been in the race five times already as a team. Certainly Xavi Fernandez has. And I think that all of the top teams in this race are ready for a bare-knuckle brawl all the way around the world. And each team has their own advantage. This just happens to be the one that the Vestas has. Lots of preparation into the navigation. I'd like to point your attention to a couple of key moments that, for me, I think really paid for them. Now, Simon Fisher, you can see here him in shot, not yet smiling, but it won't be far, is that they were the first team to, on the first night, to split away from the fleet. That takes some guts, and they hit the local effect at Cabo de Gata, so on the southeast corner of Spain. They led through the acceleration zone, through the Gibraltar Straits that we most notably saw live. They played that to perfection by jibing in the pressure, and they stayed where the strong wind was, even though it was more work. And then also they got a little bit of a kicker that allowed them to get an advantage when they rounded Porto Santos. That was the small island just off the coast of Madeira, and unlike every single other boat in the fleet, they did not jibe almost immediately after rounding the island. They pushed on, and actually, in quite a dicey maneuver, they sailed all the way basically into the wake of the disturbed air behind the bigger island Madeira, but that allowed them to benefit from the little shift in the breeze, and that allowed them to really extend again their lead.
And you're watching now the benefits of that extension. I mean, it was interesting when we spoke to the team about how they weren't going to ease up off the throttle at all, even though they were starting to feel pretty confident. And now you can see the benefits of always trying for those extra little quarter miles, because when they did sail into that light patch in Lisbon, this is what is waiting for them here. Clear space between them and the finish line, and acres of space between them and any danger coming from the rest of the fleet. This is the shot looking up the river towards the finish line. Vestas, 11th hour racing with their own personal flotilla of boats, bringing them in. They are going to need to tack a few more times. The wind direction is just perfect to make them work that for those last few miles. However, it looks pretty consistent. The breeze is up. You can see the crew on board just trying to look ahead, because a moment ago they did have that scare sailing into the lighter patches. And, you know, as we start getting into that smaller racing here, into the river, things like that, nice and easy here to pick these tacks. You wouldn't expect this team to put a foot wrong now.
No, I think they've got it sorted. That they've been working so hard on this league, and you know, when we spoke with them yesterday, they were all mentally thinking about it. They were, you know, pretty comfortable in their lead, and yet it is sailor's wisdom and really the fear of the unknown and of the endless possibilities of what might happen out on the racecourse is that they were not going to start smiling. They were not going to start talking about the win until they crossed that line. And we'll give them the due diligence, and we won't do it either.
All right, well, there is the finish line relative to the boat's position. You can see how they're going to need to bounce off the shore, hopefully not too close to the shore. That was where the light winds seemed to be. Distance-wise, they've got around about 2.2, 2.3 nautical miles to go before they get to the finish. And probably they're hoping that some of those boats on their right-hand side just hold back a little bit, because that's going to be the bit of water that they're going to have to go through. Now, Conrad, one thing I just want you to weigh in here. If we've got the helicopter just circling around the boats, it's not too easy to tell by this shot, but they do have a sail on the bow, a furled up sail, and it is plugged in to the bowsprit. At the moment, we can see the sails they're using, full main, fine, masthead code zero. That's the J0 coming off the bobstay,
which is the new sail for this edition.
The new sail for this edition. It's the upwind sail. But do we think that's the masthead code 0 then? Maybe furled, sort of ready to go. Maybe they're still sort of ready for any curveballs.
Right down to the line. They've got everything lined up. They've got that extra horsepower sitting there on deck in the case that they need it. And this is again proof of the fact that they're thinking ahead, that they're ready for anything, that they've thought about all options. Simon Fisher will have briefed the team on all possible scenarios going into this, the sort of finishing shoot down the river here. Oh, careful, you can see just in the photo there are some lobster pots out there, so that would be an absolute nightmare to go and hook one of those around the keel at this point, particularly because The Lisbon stopover is a short stopover. This is what's called in Volvo world a no-haul stopover. So that means that the boats are not coming out of the water, and technically you can't service the boats on anything underneath the water. I suppose you could drop out a rudder and get that fixed, but otherwise you do not want to put a scratch in that beautiful AkzoNobel paint.
Now, just for the benefit of people that aren't too used for offshore sailing, rudders, orange, bright colours, I mean, weed and things like that. We've seen quite a lot of the sailors happen to really sort of look after these things. Just talk us through, some of the problems that you can find on these legs.
Well, this is an offshore boat, and all manner of things can happen offshore. And the reason that the appendages, the two rudders that you can see, and also the little hint of the keel there are painted orange, is because in the worst case scenario that you lose a bulb or you lose a keel and the boat is upside down, that means that the emergency rescue crews have got something nice, bright and flashy to come looking for when they come to rescue the team. So you notice that these are one-design boats. All of the fleet have these orange appendages. You can't brand them, you can't interrupt their painted safety function. But
They just look like, I'm just sorry, Conrad, sorry to cut you off there, but it just looks like they're going a little bit light there at the moment. We're just watching with bated breath here to see when it is that they tack out, because, I mean, they're going a little closer to that shore than maybe I would have predicted.
They're definitely pushing it hard. That surprises me, certainly. And in fact, I think that there's going to be more pressure on the right-hand side. That's the opening area that we can see on the right-hand side of our screen at the moment. It looks like they're sort of tucking in close to the hills again, and I would expect attack any second now. But frankly, with all of this sort of light here jostling that they're doing, I want the cameraman on the dock not to be pointing his camera in the face of Charlie Enright, which I'm sure will have a lovely smile on it, but I want to see his hands. I want to see if that boy has any fingernails left by the time that they cross the finish line, because this is stressful stuff.
Now, the only thing that's coming to mind here is we do know that the current in the river is flowing out at the moment. It's hindering the boats from getting up, so it could be a tactic. They're going to the side to try and get themselves out of that adverse current. But if you look at some of the sailing boats on the water ahead of them, that we could just see from the previous shot, and the sailors will be doing exactly the same thing, you can read some of the breeze on the course, and it doesn't look too windy in there on the left. So, as you say, we'd expect a tack to come up momentarily. We do think that they've got the masthead code 0 plugged in. It's not hoisted, but it's sort of ready to go on the bobstay. So they are ready to change gears if they need to. And every little 100 meters that they travel up this river, it looks like another boat comes in to join them. They had quite a lot of company from about 3 hours out, in fact, coming up to Lisbon, multiple boats going out there, because this is actually quite a significant moment here in the Volvo Ocean Race. Vestas 11th Hour Racing are coming into this finish line looking set to win leg one. Obviously, Charlie Enright and Mark Towell, as part of Alvi Medica, won the last race in the last edition, but there's a bit more to it than that.
Well, yes, that's right. We need to look at the fact that on the back of the boat, and I'm sure that we'll get an image shortly, there are, in fact, two flags. There's the American flag for the fact that this is largely an American team, and then also at the back of the boat there's the Danish flag for Vestas, their Danish wind power company. Now, just to talk a little bit about American skippers winning legs in the Volvo Ocean Race. That we've got, hopefully here, a win by Charlie Enright, skipper, this time round. So, what's the date here? It's the 28th of October, so that date will be going down as a red letter day in his diary for the rest of his life. They've also got Alva Medica, leg 9 in the last edition. And then going back, the last American to win a race in the leg was Ken Reed on Puma, leg 5. Ken Reed also won in 2008-09. That was the edition that Puma finished second overall, I think, in that edition of the race. So he got pretty close to the top step of the podium. Going back, we've got Pirates of the Caribbean that won a leg with skipper Paul Kayard in 2005-06. And then you have to wind it back into the previous generation, the Volvo 60s, where John Kostecki on Ilbrook won in, what year was that? 2001, 2002. And then indeed, Paul Kayard again won one leg on EF Language. That was back in 97, 98. So if Charlie Enright and Mark Towell and the rest of his team can engrave their names in a leg winners trophy, again, they're a pretty special company there. You know, those are the big names of American sailing, and it's great to see Charlie Enright and Mark Towell cement their reputation within that field.
And they are certainly looking incredibly strong. And right now they've only got 1.3, 1.4 nautical miles to go to the finish. We'd expect them to do maybe one more tack. I think that's going to be the ley line for them. They've sailed up the northern side of the river, we think possibly to get out of the current. They're playing a little bit of a game, trying to link together the breeze that they get on the course. And as they get close to the line, we're going to try and connect with the sailors and speak to them. So in fact, actually, I believe now we might even have Mark Towell on board. Yes, I can see Mark Towell there. Mark Towell, lovely to speak to you. Please give us an insight. What's the atmosphere like on board? You are moments away from winning this race.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. It's what a way to kick this event off. You know, it's been an incredible performance team. We've had it's been a challenging leg, everything from 30 knots going through Gibraltar all the way to potentially having to anchor a few miles away from the finish here. But we're really excited. It's been an incredible job by the team, and we also have a lot to improve on and a long way to go. So it looks bright for the rest of the event.
Going back all the way to Alicante, or even pre-then, when you started to think about your attack on this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race, did you dream of a leg one win?
You know, I was reflecting on it this morning. Obviously, not putting the cart before the horse, but we won the last leg of the last race, and that was a really high note for us and a big motivation for wanting to come back. You know, I haven't thought too much about winning one particular leg of this race, but as I said, to kick it off this way, I think is a really strong sentiment about the team and just how much potential we have, and it's also just a real pleasure to be a part of. You know, we've got incredible support. We've got a great bunch of people, and most importantly, we have fantastic sponsors with Vestas and 11th Hour Racing, and so I think we're all just feeling very fortunate to have the opportunity, and it's been a really awesome week for us.
And we were just talking a moment ago about the American successes in the Volvo Ocean Race. You guys are off to an incredible start here. What's this going to mean, in your eyes, to American fans of offshore sailing?
I'm not really sure. I haven't really thought about it. We've just been so focused on the leg. But, for us, the goal the entire time has been, it's all about the process. We feel like we're improving every day. And as I said before, I think we still have a long way to go. So, the level's really high. It's been a good leg for us. But I'm confident that every team will have their day in this race. And, today has been our day, and we're definitely going to enjoy it. But we're going to get right back to work and focus on the next leg.
And amazing for Vestas as well, coming back into this edition after, the shipwreck in the last edition, coming back here very strongly. You must be pretty pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were obviously with Albumatic on the other end of that experience, but I know for Vestas as a company, they're absolutely committed to the event. They get a tremendous amount of value out of it, and as I said, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with them. What a fantastic company and group of people, and the same goes for 11th Hour Racing. We have such an opportunity with this race and this platform, this boat, to talk about sustainability and ocean health and renewable energy, and what a way to kick the event off with a leg win.
And now you've got Hannah Diamond, you've got Stacey Jackson on board. Obviously, this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race, we've seen the mixed team incentive. You're one leg down, obviously performing very well.
We're going to tack. We're going to tack. I'm coming
Mark,
back.
I'm going to come back to you in a minute. Okay. Well, there we go, jumping off from the headset. We're going to follow now Vestas 11th Hour Racing as they go for the tack, and this should be the final tack here into the finish line before they claim this leg win.
Exactly right. Now, just talking with Mark Towell, a guy that I've got an incredible amount of respect for. I think he's a wonderful character, and he's been working really, really hard, primarily on the business side, to get this deal off the ground. And so it's fantastic. It must taste especially sweet for him. One thing too is a little fact that I find a little bit amusing is the fact that, remember, last time Vestas ended up on a reef and they actually came back with a completely rebuilt boat and they restarted the race here in Lisbon back in 2015. Now for me, I find that a little bit of beautiful symmetry there, that they restarted their race, and then here now in the new race they are kicking it off in great form. Now, Mark Towell, he said that there's a long way to go. However, I just want to plant the seed of something that I find quite special. Last time, Abu Dhabi won leg one and then went on to win the race overall. This trend was repeated. 2008, 2009, Ericsson 4, Torben Grail, they won leg one, they won the race overall. 2005-06, they won. Eben Ambro won, they won the race, won the leg one, and they won the race overall. 2001, 2002, John Kostecki with Ilbrook, he won leg one, he won the race overall.
So it is a pretty strong start, and Mark Towell, I understand you're back there. We can see you grinding pretty hard for these final few little tacks. The last mile, I mean, it's not coming too easy, is it?
No, not even close. I mean, we had a really nice night last night, absolutely beautiful with great breeze, and pretty similar to the last race coming into Lisbon. The whole breeze shut off, and these last few miles have actually been some of the trickiest ones of the entire leg. We had the anchor ready on the bow, almost about to deploy it back there at Corcovelo. So it's nice to have the breeze here, and it looks like we should get across the line, which we're really looking forward to.
And I just want to touch on one thing, Mark. I was just talking to you before you did the tack. Obviously, this edition of the race is the first edition with the mixed team incentivized rule. You're coming in pretty strong. You guys have been pretty supportive of the whole thing. I mean, what's your view now, having been there and done it?
Honestly, I don't see any difference. I feel like this whole female on board thing is getting blown out of proportion a little bit. I mean, on board the boat here, we've got 9 crew members, and everybody's a part of the team, whether you're male, female, whether you're 50 or whether you're 25. So, we're a unit. That's how we approach it, and I think the race has been really smart about incentivizing the participation. But honestly, we don't feel any difference on board.
And I must say, from observing you guys in the last edition, that was something that you seemed to do really well. It was no ego. It was a really good ethos on board. Is it the same atmosphere that you've created this time around?
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to be a part of. I think it starts all the way from the partnership between Charlie and myself. It's a very collaborative approach to setting up the campaign all the way from the very beginning years ago. And we've tried to foster an environment where everybody's opinion is valued, and we try to maximize the potential of everybody that we have in the campaign. And that extends beyond the sailing team as well. That's all the way through the shore side and the commercial side as well. So it's been a real pleasure to be a part of. For me, it's all about the people. I mean, this is fun, right? It's supposed to be fun, but what's fun for me is the people you get to do it with, and we have a really great group. So I'm for that.
You just touched on the partnership between you and Charlie Enright. Obviously, people, you were brought to the world, at least, from the Disney movie, and then you were in the last edition as well. How far are you guys going to take this partnership? Because it seems to be a winning combination.
Who knows? We're just taking it one leg at a time. But it's I mean, we've been working together for over 10 years. It's been an absolute pleasure to be a part of. I think we work really, really well together, and who knows what the future holds, but it's looking bright right now.
All right, Mark, well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We're going to let you cross that finish line, and we're going to come back to you.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, well, there we go. Mark Towell, co-founder of the team with Charlie Enright, who was on the helm there. And I mean, when you talk about a winning partnership, I asked him about it. There is an atmosphere that they create on this team that you can see around the team base. There's a nice humility that seems to run through everything.
There is. That's something that's really touched me every time that I've encountered this team, both this edition and last. And it's so refreshing. I think that just for all of our international audience out there, sometimes Americans get the bad rap for having a big head, but these guys are, I'm half American, by the way, so that's self-deprecating humor. These guys have been so humble, they've been so motivated, they've been sort of driven by the purity of the Volvo Ocean Race, they've been inspired by this, that may have been going back to that Morning Light project that you were talking about, where Roy Disney sponsored a movie and a participation for them in a TP52 for the Transpac, so sailing to Hawaii. which of course is the home state of Mark Towell, so he clearly knows that very well. But it's something that's unique in this race, and I think it's really paying dividends for them.
And right now we have got around about half a nautical mile to go before Vestas 11th Hour Racing crosses the finish line and wins the first leg of this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race. And if you can see from those helicopter shots, there are an awful lot of boats around them. Quite a relief to see that they're behind the stern, keeping the water as flat as possible for the team as they come in, but also down there on the water as well. We've got our on-the-water reporter, Jordan, and I understand, Jordan, nice to see you. We can just see you on the image at the moment. It looks like, I mean, incredible atmosphere welcoming everybody in.
Oh, it's a lovely atmosphere, Niall. There's a lot of fun happening down here. The Portuguese love this race. It's a beautiful harbour. It's a beautiful city, and I think that everyone's enjoying a fantastic day out. And the boat looks amazing. We've just been watching it come up over the horizon for a good hour and a half, and it's slowly working that shore. And as I know you're a sailor, it very much, you can see behind me the bridge that looks like San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. They sailed the harbour exactly the same way. Vestas working that north shore, just looking to stay out of the tide. By my reckoning, it's turned now, so they're just happy sitting out here and just cruising up to the finish line. Probably another 300 or 400 metres to go, and big smiles on their faces.
Huge smiles on their faces, because we saw them getting caught up in that patch of light breeze, and Mark Towell, we heard a moment ago, almost having to put the anchor down. So some pitfalls right at the last minute.
Yeah, that's Portugal sailing though, you know. You get lots of little gaps in the water, in the wind out here on the water in Portugal. I've sailed here in the past, and it's quite disconcerting sometimes. And they were charging along exactly like they are now, and then they just sailed, they tried to do a tack and just came out with no speed. They lost speed into the tack, and then as they rolled out looking for pressure, they came out, and the wind was sort of in front of them, then behind them, and all over the place. And it took a while for the momentum to build. And it looked like they were going to sit for a good 15 to 20 minutes, but they managed to slowly build this momentum, and the breeze has filled in. But if you look back up to the 25th of April bridge, you'll see that, or just underneath the big bridge in shot, you'll see that there's actually not much wind up through there. So I'm expecting it to continue to drop out through the day.
So a big relief then for Vestas 11th Hour Racing when they exploit this window, and it could cause some problems for the rest of the teams. We're just going to come back to Jordan in just a moment. He's out there on the water right now, and he is following them, and we are beaming in with everything coming in. And right now, as you can see, someone on the left-hand side getting a little bit close there just to welcome them in.
Looks like they're furling here, and so that means that they're rolling into another tack. This is a critical moment. As Jordan said, these boats, they're relatively lightweight for the size that they are. And there's so little wind out there at the moment. And so if they get this maneuver wrong, if they back the jib, thankfully they know how to do this, so they've got it sorted. But if they stall the boat and let the speed bleed away, then they're cooked. It takes so much time and energy to relaunch these boats into action once they're stopped. And so it's really careful. There's going to be absolute light fingertip control by Charlie Enright, the skipper, and indeed helmsman this time round, as they work their way out. Interesting to hear what Jordan Spencer said there out on the water. He said that up the racecourse where the wind is coming from, there looks like there's no wind left. And so this may be a case of Vestas 11th Hour Racing just sneaking in on the last wind that's out there on the racecourse, and then we're going to have to see what happens, if there's anything left, when Mapfre comes up behind them.
And it'll be obviously bad news for Mapfre, but good news for you, because you were talking about this 4-hour difference between Vestas finishing and Mapfre finishing, so maybe Conrad's prediction will be proved right. But at the moment, we're seeing a bit of a compression behind this boat with the rest of the fleet, but there is very, very little standing in the way now of Vestas 11th Hour Racing and the finish line. We are down to under half a nautical mile. The crew are looking over to the side. They know they've only got one more tack to go. And we are just lining ourselves up to take a little bit of a look across the finish line. Jordan Spencer, our on-the-water commentator, is there, and he will call them the moment they go through the line. And it is amazing, isn't it, how you can sail all those miles, 1,650 miles, and you're still having to keep the concentration up.
Absolutely, there they go, and they're furling up that J0. Remember, this is the new sail for this edition of the race. North Sails worked with the teams to put a turbo on these boats for the light air breeze. Can you imagine how hard this would be if they just had the J1? Their big jib. Wow, they would really be suffering without that extra surface area for sailing upwind at the moment. And that is the last maneuver, aside from furling the sails and dropping it after that across the line, that remains in this leg. They've got just a few hundred meters now. They're pointing directly at the finish line. And it's now that some of the tension can start to roll out of the shoulders of all of the helm, out of the helm and out of all of the people on board. They might start sneaking a cheeky smile in there as well.
Well, this is something that actually we haven't seen from the team very much. I mean, they have, as you say, they have led since Cabo de Gata on a tactical move. They went for it, they made it work, and they've held off every attack from Mafre and from Axo Nobel, and then extending. And still, this time yesterday, they refused to say, no, we've got this one in the bag, right up until this half mile. These are probably the first smiles that we've seen come to the surface. We've got Charlie Enright, the co-skipper, on the wheel right now. Hannah Diamond as well, close to the rail, close to the primary winch. And there you can see the smiles, and they know they've got it at this point.
They're a superstitious bunch, sailors, and never want to say it's over until it's actually over. But these last few hundred meters are just so special. I can speak from experience of what it's like to sail around the world and cross that last finish line. These guys, this time round, are just at the start of that adventure, and yet they couldn't start it in any better fashion, could they?
Well, Vestas 11th Hour Racing closing down to the final few meters before the finish line. Jordan Spencer, our on-the-water commentator, is there. Jordan, this looks like a pretty good atmosphere for them.
Noel, I think you've called to me on this, so I'll just talk away. I lost communications in my ear there for a sec. I can say that we're just on 100 metres to the line. We did have a near port starboard incident as a visitor or a spectator got too excited. The boys had a bit of a smile. I can see Simon Fisher was laughing. They're starting to high five on the boat. If you look across at them, I look across to the shore. There's a big red flag on the shore that I'm looking at, and they come across the line, one boat length. They're about to dip the line, and there they go. The horns are going as they go through the line. Lots of happy smiles. That is a great outcome for a great team of sailors, and they sailed brilliantly. I can tell you right now, they sailed absolutely brilliantly. I was very impressed, and they deserve that win.
Vestas 11th Hour Racing crosses the finish line, concluding leg one and taking a win. A back-to-back Volvo Ocean Race win for Mark Towell and Charlie Enright. Now they can furl the J0, get the sails down, come ashore, and they can start the celebrations.
Absolutely, that's something that's really remarkable. It's so rare to see teams coming doing back-to-back editions, sponsors doing back-to-back editions, and winning back-to-back races spread out across two campaigns like that. That is just so impressive, and it bodes so well for this team.
And it's just amazing, I'm sorry, it's just absolutely amazing to see them finally let down their guard. There's no way they're going to jinx it now. They are across the line. They have just refused to enter into any discussion with us about what's this wind going to feel like until they cross that line.
Well, now let's get a microphone across onto the boat and finally ask them those questions, because we want to know what that feels like for them. It must be just bursting with pride and relief and excitement and adrenaline all at the same time. You know, that's a heady mix of it's a heady cocktail of emotion, and there's nothing better in the world right now.
And there's an awful lot for this team to feel good about, because, you know, tactically they sailed incredibly strong. Speed-wise, they were absolutely flawless. There's Nick Dana on the back there just waving.
He was on board America last time, so this is a back-to-back win for him as well.
Absolutely, and of course he injured his leg coming into Alicante on the prologue race. There he is, sailing well, being very happy, and he'll be very pleased to be on board and contributing to this historic moment here for Charlie Enright, Mark Towell, and the rest of their team.
Well, he's got his, he's the bowman of the watch at the moment, and you can see in his left hand he's got the bowman's harness. That means he's going to clip in, get hoisted a little bit up the rig so that they can take down the mainsail. For me, it's a small gesture, but it's just really testament to the culture of this team, that they're not running around, they're not losing their head. You know, first thing that he does is pick up his harness, is back to work, and you know, that's the way it should be.
Well, as Vestas 11th Hour Racing come across the finish line, let's go back down to Jordan Spencer, our on the water commentator.
Okay. I'm not sure if you guys just threw to me then, but at the moment the boys are pulling down the sails, looking like there's a lot of weight in those things at the moment. So they're just very relaxed, very happy, gone by, done a great job. Be very excited to put everything to bed and go home and have a quiet celebration.
Well, I'm not too sure whether celebrations are going to be that quiet because, you know, Conrad, you were talking about, you know, what a big moment this was for American sailing, for Danish sailing as well. It's an American-Danish team, but also just for any team. It's the perfect start to your Volvo Ocean race, especially as you won it outright. It wasn't even close.
Exactly. You know, that they were almost unchallenged in this whole leg. You know, they're out there. The theoretical route is 1,500 miles. They did a couple of hundred miles more than that. So, you know, this is the equivalent of 3 fast nets back to back. So for those of you that talk about a 600-mile race being a long one, these guys have just done 3, and yet they're fresh, they're ready, they're pumped up after this win. And you know, it's really interesting to see that this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race this time around is experimenting with a quote-unquote sprint leg. And you know, the first leg has typically been that long slog all the way down to Cape Town, where they go down the North Atlantic with a big, fast running spinnaker blasts all the way down to the equator, across the equator, the doldrums, and then spinning all the way down around the St. Helena High before getting their first taste of the Southern Ocean before finally making it to Cape Town. This first leg obviously is very, very different. It's similar to their Leg 0 and the preparatory races that they've done thus far. So clearly they're warmed up after that kind of racing, and they're really strong over the distance. Now the key thing is to see whether they can maintain that intensity over the longer distances. And I would say yes. Niall, you talked about the fact that they've got 23 Volvo Ocean races in the experience of this crew, 5 overall wins, and I think that these guys have really got the strength, as they've demonstrated over the short distance, but also they've got the strength and the endurance to go big and go long.
Well, it's certainly going to be incredibly exciting to see what this team can do from this amazingly strong start. And for a special treat for you, we've got Amy Monkman down there at the finish line with Phil Harmer, who wasn't able to come onto the boat. He was injured just before the boat left, but an integral part of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Amy, you're there with Phil. I mean, this looks pretty special from here.
Yeah, no, Phil, your team have just had an absolutely incredible finish to leg 1. Just tell us how you're feeling right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, the guys were awesome. It was a great start to the race. We've got maximum points, which is what we're after, and couldn't be happier for the team and the sponsors.
Couldn't be happier for the team, but you were almost on board for this leg, and obviously you're standing here with me on the dock. Tell us a little bit about why you're not on board.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty disappointing not to be involved in this great result the way I want it to be, but the prologue was a really tough leg and really windy through Gibraltar and lots of tacks and moving stuff. I ended up with a herniated disc, so as a team and with our physio we decided just sit out this one and concentrate on not just leg 2 but the rest of the race. So.
And let's talk about your navigator, Simon Fisher. I mean, more commonly known as Sci-Fi. He's been quite an integral part to this leg. He's made some quite bold decisions. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with him and his decision-making processes.
Yeah, I mean, Sci-Fi is a huge part of our team and also one of the reasons why I wanted to join the team. I've sailed a lot with Sci-Fi in the past. We won the last race together and we spoke together after the last race, and we really wanted to sail together again. So, I mean, he's an absolute legend of the sport and one of the best navigators going around. But he's also a really good helmsman and a great trimmer and just a very good personality on board, so he can have a laugh with everyone and raise the spirits when they're down. So as a person, he's a legend, and as a sailor, he's a legend. So couldn't be happier for him to get a result like this to start the race.
And you won the race in 2011-12 with the Group Armour sailing team. You won it again in 14-15 with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Are you going for the hat trick with Vestas 11th Hour Racing?
I think it's a pretty good start to it. It's not really a personal goal, but it's a team goal to win the race. So if I could get a hat trick, that would be amazing. But it's not the reason for doing the race, and it's not the reason for me personally. It's just it would be an amazing team result to win with Vestas 11th Hour Racing, for sure.
All right, thanks, Phil. I'm going to let you get back to your team. Back to you now.
All right, thank you very much, Amy. Well, that was Phil Harmer from Vestas 11th Hour Racing, and as you heard, a little bit of an injury there. However, certainly helping to get the team off the line and into the leg start proper. Now then, Conrad, let's go to points, because celebrations aside, fantastic performance, but of course this is just one leg. What does this mean for Vestas, and how do the scores add up?
Well, this is where the value of this win really comes in. Aside from those smiles and aside from the immense relief to get across the line, to mark where you fit within the fleet and to put your competitors on notice, isn't it? But when it comes down to winning the race overall, it comes down to points. Now, in comparison to the last editions of the race, we've gone to a high points version, which means that instead of trying to go around, like golf, go around the world with the smallest score possible, now it's gone to a more standard version where you're trying to get as many points as possible. Now, to that end, there are 7 boats in the race, but there's a bonus point. So instead of getting 7 points for the win, in fact, this time around you get 8. Now, that puts them clear of Mapfre, because when Mapfre comes in and crosses the line, assuming there are no difficulties, they will get not 7 points, but 6. And so that puts them 2 points clear on leg 1. This is an incredible start to the race. And that bonus point will carry all the way through the rest of the race. So there are going to be 8 points on offer for the winner again in Cape Town. However, by the time they get to Melbourne, there's actually more. Now, for those of you that have not been digging through the notice of race, it's a pretty weighty tome, and frankly, you need more than a couple of cups of coffee to get through it. The way that we're talking about, or incentivizing, that was the word that Mark Towell was talking about earlier, incentivizing tactical risk-taking and really trying to get the boats to make a break from the fleet and really go hammer and tongs all the way to the finish, is that in 3 legs this time, 1 from Cape Town to Melbourne, 2 from Auckland to Itajai, and 3 the transatlantic from Newport to Cardiff. All of those legs are double points. So the winner, instead of getting 8, they are going to get 2 times 7, so 2 times the winning, plus 1, so they're going to be getting 15 points. So it really incentivizes that win, and it means that that everybody's going to be pushing really hard all the way to the end, because there's an overbearing incentive to get that win.
Well, these are the scenes of Vestas 11th Hour Racing on the water, and I've got to say, being swamped right when you want to get the sails down and you want to get to shore, meet the rest of your team, meet your friends, meet your family. They have been absolutely swamped. There are so many dinghies out there. We've got the junior lasers out there. We've got some big boats out there as well. Plenty of ribs. There's an old-timey something or other on the right-hand side. That's come out for good measure as well. They're going to start making their way ashore, and if we can, we're going to keep up to date with any of the celebrations there. Also, of course, we've got the rest of the fleet coming in behind them. Vestas 11th Hour Racing. They got through the current. They got through the bad air, through the bubbles of no breeze. Now the challenge is going to fall to Mapfre to hold on to second place. Again, they've still got a buffer. But let's not forget, behind them, we do have some big battles raging. We've still got Turn the Tide and Plastic and Team Brunel. We've still got Axel Nobel and Dongfeng and Sun Hunkai Scallywag wedged between them. So a race is still raging at the mouth of the river into Lisbon. And right now, Vestas 11th Hour Racing will be very pleased with the win and very pleased that the hard work has paid off. A team that arguably didn't put a foot wrong. I mean, the debrief from this leg is going to be smiles all round, really.
I reckon, that this team is really chasing absolute perfection, and so undoubtedly they will go and find interesting things that they can do. Every time they go sailing, they learn something. That's what they say. And I think that if this is what their starting point is, I'm intimidated, frankly, to see where they go next.
Well, just before we hear some more from the team on board, let's actually have a look at some of that incredible performance that we saw out in the water. This is the Vestas win of leg one. So we're just going to bring you that highlight in just a moment. We've got Charlie Enright there. You can see on the wheel. This is co-skipper, just getting himself set up. So we're going to be hearing from Charlie Enright in just a moment as they get themselves in. I mean, I always feel a bit sorry for the sailors. We really want to hear from them. They probably just want to get themselves ashore and get themselves rested.
Yeah, they probably just want to neck a cold drink at this point. Remember, they don't have a fridge on board. They don't have fresh food. And I was in Lisbon just a couple of weeks ago, and out there in the sun, it is baking hot. They've been working hard, and I think that they're just waiting to get to the dock and get some fresh food.
Well, we're just going to see if Charlie Enright, the co-founder, can hear. Charlie, can you hear us? We're just watching you on the camera on your right-hand side. Am I coming through?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you want nothing better to get ashore and celebrate with the rest of your teams and your friends and family, but congratulations. That was an amazing performance.
Yeah, it was something else. It feels like a lot longer than 6 days or whatever it was, I can tell you that. You know, it's funny to have sailed into the Med just last week, and you know, it feels like we were just in Lisbon, and it was good. It was a lot to take in, so it hasn't really sunk in yet, but you know, can't argue with the result.
And it looked like the river in Lisbon, you know, held a few tricks up her sleeve for you. Did you feel nervous at any point? Oh, I think the audio is just cut out for Charlie Enright here. Charlie, when we come back to you, if you just put your hand in the air or something like that so we know that we can hear you. And Charlie, I think you can hear us okay?
Nope, that's the bad side.
Unfortunately, we've just lost the link to Charlie, but we're going to just try and stay with and see if we can get some reaction from Charlie. You know, Conrad, it's interesting seeing the difference in personality between Mark Tal and Charlie. Charlie he seems a very level-headed, you know, doesn't let emotion get in the way of his performance.
No, absolutely not. You were talking about the spirit that runs through this team, and that have been a humble spirit of hard work, and clearly given this result of good results. One thing that I heard in a video recently, that Charlie, in fact, he was talking about the fact that they don't want to get too high when they're up, they don't want to get too low when they're down, and you know, it's always satisfying when you see a true ocean racing champion or a champion in any sport jumping up and down and whooping for joy and sort of really letting that emotion out, and yet, you know, these guys, they keep it bottled in, and I think that by doing so is that they can channel that into more motivation for the next leg and just keep on trucking.
And of course, you know, in the build-up to this race, Vestas 11th Hour Racing, now, absolutely, everyone's going to be talking about, well, what a strong team, and are they going to go all the distance? But they weren't really at the front of everybody's mind going into leg one.
They're not. In fact, given the experience from the last race, given the people that they have on board, and given the way that they prepared for this race, my money was on Dongfeng Race Team. Who was yours on?
You know what, I don't really want to say, because unfortunately, well, I tell you what we can do now. We can hear from Charlie Enright. Charlie, thank you so much for sticking with us, because we really want to get your thoughts on this one. You guys seemed so strong on the water. Did you ever doubt you can do it at any time?
Well, for us, it's really been about the process, you know, and improving every day. We came to this thing a little late in the piece, but we prioritized getting the right people. And, you know, whether it's manifests itself in the results every single time we've gone sailing, we felt like we've improved. So, you know, this provides us with a lot of confidence. I mean, I can't say enough about, you know, the team that sailed on the boat, but also, you know, some of the team members who, you know, unfortunately weren't able to be with us. I mean, it's a pretty good thing when you go out and win a leg with a two-time race winner, you know, back on the dock and a reigning world champion. So, you know, credit to the guys who were on board and stepped up, but also a lot of work put in by those guys that weren't. So.
It certainly seems from the shore that you have an unbelievably strong squad behind you. Do you feel confidence from that? Do you feel like you've got a real powerhouse?
I think we got a good group of people that work well together and kind of see the world the right way. That's kind of what's important. You know, we try not to get too high and not to get too low, and you know, keep coming to work every day hungry to improve. I mean, that's the important thing. You know, but that extends beyond, you know, just the folks in the boat. You know, it's the shore team, the management folks, you know, our sponsors and partners. You know, and everything that we do, we try to approach it with the same attitude. And I think aligning everybody we have, it's pretty nice to watch that flag go up, you know, is very important. Oh, and it's going to stay up. Looks like we'll stay up.
We're just going to have a quick look at it, but okay. Oops. Well, I think we can forgive you that one because it didn't look like you really put a foot wrong on this leg. And me and Conrad were just talking. How long do you think the debrief's going to be from this leg? Have you got many lessons, many things to change?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we were really focusing on was our decision-making and our comm structure, and that's come a long way. You know, we feel confident in our boat speed, certainly, in certain sail sets, and then we have, well, basically the other half of the inventory still to figure out. So, you know, there's a lot of work to be done. You know, it's certainly not a time to rest on our laurels here after, you know, just the first leg. But we'll take what we learned and have confidence in it and move on accordingly.
It looked like your offshore strategy, certainly the move that you made all the way back at Cabo de Gata was the right one, incredibly strong. You could say quite brave. Are you feeling as confident with your boat speed as well?
Yeah, we feel confident with our boat speed and our, you know, to some extent our sail selection. Got a little bit of ways to go there. But yeah, you know, it's always worth the try, you know, and see who comes with you. It was something that we talked about a couple, you know, days leading up to it. So it was nice to use the weather team and, you know, the guys that we had on shore to help us make decisions like that.
Charlie, listen, I wouldn't want to give you a reputation to be a skipper that doesn't pitch in, so I will let you go and help park the boat, and we'll talk to you on the dock.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Bye.
All right, there we go. Charlie Enright, skipper of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. They're in the harbour now, coming into Lisbon. And, you know, I wonder, the teams were here a month, 3 weeks ago, something like that. I wonder whether there was any lessons gleaned from sailing around in that river, doing some training and learning maybe some of the problems and some of the solutions.
Undoubtedly. If you look just to the left of your image now, you can see that this is the big building, which is the old converted warehouse, really, that the Volvo Ocean Race has been using to do the refit on all of these boats. So they turned these old fishing ports into basically an assembly line. And what they were able to do is that they had so much space undercover that they could just line the boats up and fire them through. You know, figuratively speaking, sand off all the painting, repair them perfectly, do a complete refit on all of the systems on board, and you know, so much more than just painting and giving the boats a new identity this time around. So ever since they picked up their boat in spring of this year, they have been training out of here. They did 2 transats. They came back. They've been based in Lisbon. The assembly period was here. Towards the end of September, they know the stretch of water like the back of their hand. And indeed, I went sailing with them just a couple of weeks ago from this very port, and I certainly had the feeling that they knew what was up.
Well, it certainly seems to have paid off for them because Vestas 11th Hour Racing really did look like they owned that river. They're only one small problem. Now they get themselves back to the dock. But let's not get ahead of ourselves because there is still plenty of race left to go. Second place at the moment, and arguably going to stay that way, is the Spanish team Mafre. Everybody's hot favourite for the overall win all the way at the finish line in The Hague next year. But right now, coming in for a second place finish in leg 1. And they are around about an hour away by the calculations here of the race experts in Volvo Ocean Race headquarters. So that's where they are on the tracker. Now, we've been dialing in to bring you some live pictures. They're just a little bit offshore at the moment. So sometimes the signal sort of cuts out. It's a little bit jumpy, but that gives you an idea of what's going on board. And Conrad, looks to me, I mean, we saw Vestas 11th Hour Racing in the river. They had the J0, but not the J0 this time.
No, the big red sail that you see in the images is indeed the masthead code 0. And so that's a much bigger sail. It's used typically more for reaching than for these tighter upwind angles. And it'll be interesting to see if we can get another camera angle in a little bit and actually see if they've got the reverse strategy, that they've got the masthead code 0 up and pulling and potentially the J0 on deck ready to go in case the angles get tighter.
Well, because Vestas 11th Hour Racing, I mean, in fact, I wonder if we can get the gallery just to pull back a little bit, because I actually want to see, you're going the wrong way. I really wanted to see, that's the finish line. That's where Vestas is. But the bit that I'm interested in is before the boat came into the harbour, before the boat came into the river, there was an area where Vestas hit no breeze before it turned into a beat. Mafre's line, the white line, much straighter, much more consistent. And it seems like the problems that Charlie Enright and Mark Towell's team had as they approached the river, Mafre hasn't had at all. In fact, we're sort of yet to see them really match the same line. There you can see it at the top of your screen. The red line is Dongfeng, and just about where Dongfeng is now, that extra squiggle from Vestas 11th Hour Racing was the drop in breeze. No such problems for Mafre.
Well, let's just hold fire on that one, because they've still got 9 miles to go. They're doing 4.6 knots, and I think that the wind is going to drop off further, because as you can see just on the tracker underneath the black box that says Mafre down a little bit and to the right, that is a big lump of land that's going to block the wind, which is currently in from the north. And I think that they're going to struggle just as badly as Vestas did.
Well, let's move now back to the dock, because I believe we've got Amy Monkman down at the dock. And Amy, happy scenes for supporters there.
Yeah, so I'm standing, I've got all the Vestas 11th Hour Racing supporters behind me. So I've got all of the Vestas 11th Hour Racing supporters behind me. I've almost been taken out by a blue flag, and I'm standing here with Charlie Enright's wife, Maris. Maris, you must be so happy for Charlie right now.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't ask for anything else on this first leg, and I know for them it's going to be a huge confidence boost going into the rest of the race and the longer legs coming up. It felt a little anticlimactic watching them leave from Alicante and knowing that we see them in a couple of days, but I mean, you really can't ask for anything more from the team, and I know having watched this whole campaign come together, it's been a lot of hard work to get here, so to see it come to fruition in such a way is pretty incredible. So I hope they're as psyched as we are.
And what's it like as a family member tracking the fleet? Because, you know, when you work for the race or if you're a fan, you're constantly addicted to the tracker. But as a family member, I can't imagine how hard that must be. You must be waking up in the middle of the night.
Well, waking up in the middle of the night anyway, so it's just another reason to. But, you know, I kind of told myself we wouldn't be as obsessed this time around, but it's harder to follow through with that than I thought. So we follow closely every little media that comes out. We look at the pictures, watch the videos every morning, and it's definitely different going around this time with 2 little guys, and I'm so happy I've got my mom here too to help out, but it's a lot of work, but to see a result like this really makes it completely worth it, and to know that our son and daughter are watching it along with us is really incredible. So different but great.
Well, the vibe on the pontoon here is amazing. Niall, that's it from us. We'll go back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. Now, a quick update for everybody that is interested in the battle for second. Mafre at the moment, they've got a big buffer behind. They weren't able to pull in Vestas 11th Hour Racing. However, the race experts here have informed us they're actually about 2 hours away. So, Conrad, you know, we saw on the images earlier, they've got the masthead code 0 up. Their course has been quite consistent, but really it's wind speed. And I wonder whether we can actually put the wind speed up on the screen. Maybe for you later we can have a little bit of a look as to how much breeze there is for them, because that seems to be where they're struggling.
Well, we saw them there on port tack with the masthead code 0, pulling them along, but as you can see on the screen right now, they're doing just 4 knots. If we go back to where Dongfeng is sitting just a few miles behind, 8 knots or 9 knots. And so it's really just inevitable. They're going to come in here, they're going to grind to a halt. They may well spin around in circles a few times. But now that the first place is done, they're here for second. However, we were talking about just before we went back to the images of Vestas 11th Hour Racing, we were talking about how to win this race and what the consequences of coming first and second are. I'd just like to point bring your attention to the fact that I was talking about the fact that a lot of boats have won Leg 1 and then gone on to win the race overall. That was certainly the case for Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, but they came second more times than they won legs during the 9-leg race last time round. And so you can absolutely sit on the podium all the way around the world and then come away with an overall win. So I think that Vestas 11th Hour Racing may have put everybody else on notice with this incredible result. However, the race favourites are still race favourites, and I think that Xavier Fernandez is going to be quietly confident with what he's been able to achieve out there on the water.
Absolutely. I mean, and celebrations on the dock for sure, because this is a perfect start. But as you say, it is a long old competition. We've got 11 legs. By my calculation, I think it's 104 points from the first start line in Alicante. Vestas has just picked up 8. I mean, it's going to be, there's a long way to go. But importantly, Vestas 11th Hour Racing has started as strongly as you could ever wish. The first moment in the race where the tactical options became available, they took it and they absolutely performed incredibly well. And a special treat for the team as they get down there. We've got Mark Turner, Volvo Ocean Race CEO, on the dock to welcome them in with Amy Monkman. Amy, certainly we pulled in all the stops here for Vestas 11th Hour Racing. We can see you've got Mark Turner with you. Amy, I wonder if you can hear me, and I wonder how you're feeling down there at the moment. We're just going to come back to Amy in just a moment. Now, we can see the team. They don't rush at this point, do they? I mean, everybody's waiting for them to get in. We're waiting for them. The crowds are waiting for them. They're just taking their time, because one thing's for sure, when they drop the sails and everything, they do have to put them away carefully. When they park the boat, it does have to be done well, because, what, a week? And then they've got to go and do a big leg all the way down to Cape Town.
A week, and then they're off again. And remember, they have very few sails that they have access to. There's a limited range. They've got 2 full sets of sails that are available to them during the course of this race. And so I was really astonished, actually, that all of the teams, when we saw them last time in Lisbon, when they were doing their last trainings, that was the first time out with the race sails, and they were treating those sails with kid gloves. You know, delicately folding them perfectly, and that's what they're doing here.
I'll tell you what, let's dial into the harbour side here and just soak up some of the atmosphere as Vestas 11th Hour Racing docks after winning the first leg.
Grande performance desta depois de passarem na Madeira, à Ilha de Porto Santo, chegaram a Lisboa em primeiro lugar nesta primeira etapa da Volvo Ocean Race que ligou Alicante a Lisboa.
Okay, we have a few moments with friends and family. We'll go onto the dock now. Friends and family will go onto the dock before they get off the boats. So you're welcome to go onto the dock right now and just say hello. And congratulations, we have 2 minutes with friends and family.
Este agora é um momento que é sempre um momento de grande ternura e de muita emoção, em que as equipas se reúnem com os seus familiares, com os seus amigos, com os seus filhos, e é sempre um momento de muita emoção e de muita alegria, e temos sempre aqui 2 ou 3 minutos para isto, isto tem que ser. O desporto de competição não se faz sem o apoio das famílias, que é muito, muito importante. Mas podemos todos dar mais um grande aplauso. Vestas 11th.
Vestas 11th Hour Racing, incredible. And I think we'll get a moment now to speak to, we'll start with the skipper, Charlie Enright. Okay, we're going to get through to Charlie here as he said his welcomes.
Charlie, got to be happy with that.
Yeah, you can't argue with the result, that's for sure. You know, I think Mark was mentioning it earlier. You know, it meant a lot to us personally to win that last leg in the last race, and we didn't want to show signs of regression, so we figured we'd just keep it up.
Right, so the last leg of the last race, the first leg of this race, the trend is your friend, right?
Yeah, something like that. We'll take the bookend. Anyway, you know, we've felt like we've improved every time we've gotten on the water. You know, we got to this a little late in the piece, but we feel like we got the right people involved, and now you're seeing some of that come to fruition. But, you know, we got a long way to go, certainly. But it's definitely a good way to start.
And your MVP for the event, surely your navigator didn't put a foot wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job. You know, Simon didn't really misstep at all. You know, it's easy to go fast when you're in good positions and vice versa, and this one goes to him. So.
And the stresses and strains on board the boat, all okay, but it's pretty hard to defend a lead in those conditions.
Yeah, I mean, every sked is certainly nerve-wracking. You know, even the last ones when you're stuck in a river going backwards. But you know, that's par for the course with these little coastal finishes. But yeah, I mean, we pride ourselves on trying not to get too high and not too low, and I think we executed that on this leg.
Excellent. Well done. There were some people in the media perhaps not having you top of their potential list, but it looks like you proved them wrong.
It's not about proving anybody wrong. It's about having confidence in ourselves and committing to the process. And you know, now we're starting to see the results of that.
Great. Well done. Congratulations. You've had thousands and hundreds of thousands of people following you all through this first leg. And we're going to get a word with Sci-Fi. Simon Fisher, you want to come over here and just have a word with us? Yeah, right. You're playing daddy daycare already. Your wife very busy with, she's happy. First for her husband and looks like second for her team she works for. But just tell us, you didn't really put a foot wrong. You made it look easy.
No, we had a good leg, and I guess a lot of that thanks to the preparation from our very strong weather team with Chris Bedford and Anderson and also Vestas. So that was nice. We prepared well for the leg, and there were no real surprises. So and when that happens, you kind of know you've done a good job. So there's a few bits we looked into quite a lot of detail, and yeah, managed to execute them quite well. But beyond that, you know, the whole team sailed really, really well, confidently, and you know, we were fast, and it was great. You know, it's really, really nice to. You know, we've always focused on improving and improving and improving, but that's still happening, and there's still a lot to come, but it's always really good when you can put in a strong result and you sort of see the fruits of your labour.
So just tell us about the first, I guess, 24 hours were pretty critical. You looked like you were just making all of your own decisions, not worrying too much about everyone else. I got the impression you were sort of backing yourself.
Yeah, I think we had a good plan. And like I said before, you know, we did a lot of preparation work, and yeah, we sort of knew where there'd be opportunities, and it's always a balance in taking risk and being proactive or reactive, but we felt, you know, we need to put our best foot forward and try and make the decisions before they get made for us, and that worked for us. And obviously there were a few nervous moments, but we sort of stuck to our guns, and it all came out well.
Excellent. And you just talked about Anderson Reggio, the continuity from the team previous. You obviously won last time, but you then joined this team. They've had a lot of continuity through the team, a lot of the same people.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a bit of continuity, and Charlie and Mark have done a fantastic job of putting together a really strong team, a great bunch of people. I mean, we're having a good race so far, but we're having a great time too. The atmosphere in the team is brilliant, and it's a really nice mix of youth and experience, I think, and you know, it's a really pleasurable team to be part of.
Wonderful. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, the skipper, Charlie Enright, and the navigator, Simon Fisher from Vestas, 11th Hour Racing, winners of Leg 1. Now we go back for local media interviews that will happen on top, and then we'll go up to the stage and have a prize giving.
Hang on, I'm rolling. Can we go Sonny talk? Was that okay? Yeah, sure.
Of Vestas 11th Hour Racing being welcomed in from the wind. But let's now start to move to the next boat coming into the finish. It will be Mafre, the Spanish team, a big name, surely, in this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race. Now, Just while we were hearing from the sailors on the dock, we did actually see Mafre sail through an incredibly light patch of breeze. In fact, it went down to 1.5 knots across their deck. But right now, they're back up. The wind speed's looking a little bit more healthy, 7, 8 knots. And you can see from the speed, it's looking quite strong. So they're making some good progress to the finish line. We did see Vestas 11th Hour Racing sail through a couple of light patches. So 1 or 2 hurdles left for the Spanish team to go. And then just behind them, we've got Dongfeng Race Team. And within reach of the French team, we do have Axel Nobel as well. So still very much a battle raging behind. But Mafre will be the next team to come in to finish. Vestas 11th Hour Racing having claimed victory. We are going to take a little bit of a break. But before we do, let's have a look at some of the highlights for Vestas and this incredible leg win.
First night, everybody's all close, all doing the same stuff. No surprise there.
Is down here to leeward. They were pretty even with us, similar wind direction. The rest of the fleet behind us had a little bit more lift in the wind direction. To Mafre, and it looks pretty good on the rest of the fleet. The plan today is to just keep making our way north. We're reaching right now, and we're trying to stay on the western side of the ridge of not a lot of wind. And then once we get a bit further north, we'll cross the ridge and make our approach into Lisbon.
Night should be just like any other night. You know, we kind of pride ourselves on not getting too high, not getting too low. So I think we'll keep sailing the way that we've been sailing because it's worked so far. We got a little bit of a lead.